Christina, it's funny because we've talked about the topic of podcasting like on this show, but it's been, Joe, doesn't it feel like it's been ages since we talked about it? And I feel like the podcasting game has changed so much. And before we dive into all of that goodness, we want to ask you our icebreaker question, which is what do you wish you had known before becoming a solopreneur?
I think the thing that I really wish I would have known, if I'm being honest, is be open to the ways people are willing to give you money. And what I mean by that is I was very closed off in what I thought like it had to look like, if that makes sense. Like I was like, when I start a business, this is how it's going to be different. And this is what I want it to look like. And when it didn't necessarily go my way, I kind of dug in. And it wasn't until I realized, like, listen to what people are saying to you about how they want to pay you, how they want to give you money, etc., and see how you can kind of blend those two things together.
And are you talking like from an offer standpoint or like Venmo?
Offer from an offer standpoint specifically. No, not in the specifics of like, I want to pay you via PayPal, anything like that. I would have taken
No
the money.
Venmo,
I
no
would have been
Venmo.
like, I would have been like, you want to send me cash? That's fine. No, I would have been completely fine. No, it was more that I was so, and we can get into this, but I was so burnt out from the experience that I had, right? In the agency world, typical world, that I was like, I don't want to do it this way. Do you know what I mean? And so then when people came to me and they're like, yeah, but could we like a little bit do it that way? I was like, no, and it wasn't until I kind of like realized, hey, there's a way to make this happen that still works for you and is still going to give a lot of value to your clients. You know what I mean? I was like so stuck in that, like, it has to not be this way and it has to be my way. And I think I just kind of stayed in that for a little too long.
Got it. Yep. All makes sense. Well, let's dive in because we're going to get a little meta on this conversation because we're talking about podcast guesting and you are our guest on our podcast right now.
Whoa, my head.
I know.
I know, right? There's layers. There's layers to this. Yes, exactly.
Guys, why
Exactly.
is guesting so important for solopreneurs? And yeah, just for solopreneurs. Let's start there.
Let's start here. You don't have a whole marketing team out there doing this work for you, right? I was also a solopreneur for many years. And so I understand that, when you're a one-person shop, you don't necessarily have someone out there who's spreading the word about you, right? It is just you. And so by having the opportunity to get in front of so many new potential clients and customers, et cetera, by spending 1 hour of your time is a really good use of that marketing time, marketing budget, if needed, et cetera, for solopreneurs. Yeah, I'm all about, and I think all solopreneurs are working smarter, not harder, right? And podcast guesting is the epitome of that. You are going to get in front of a whole bunch of new people. They're going to know, like, and trust you a lot more. And you're going to be able to get that message out further than, you probably could have imagined.
Well, and so from that point, you get spread out, you get put in front of new audiences and some big audiences as a podcast.
Can be. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, the millions that listen to every episode of ours.
Yes.
But for solopreneurs, it's kind of weird. Joe and I, shameless plug, are just about to be finished writing Solopreneur Business for Dummies. And one of the things—
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the things in like our research and talking to all the people that we do in our community is that they have a hard time actually like saying what they do and getting it out into the world. There's a vulnerability with it. There's somebody's going to steal my idea with it. And they kind of go from, they're like a best kept secret. And we're like, no. Tell people what you do. Get your message out there. How do you help people overcome that mindset shift, knowing like keeping it to themselves and then being like, I don't know, somebody in Timbuktu could hear this episode and I will never know.
Yeah. What I really like to say to people, if I'm being honest, is I'll look them just dead in the eye and I'll be like, what do you think is the worst thing that could happen? What do you really think is the worst thing that can happen by putting yourself out there on podcasts, right? By spreading that message. And people will have all kinds of different things, right? Like you just mentioned some of them. Someone steals my idea. I say the wrong thing, right? People don't think I'm qualified to be up there. And I'm here to say that, yeah, I guess maybe some of that stuff could potentially happen. But for most people, in no way is that going to be the end of their business, right? Is that going to be something that means they're not moving forward in their business? I truly, truly think that the worst thing that can happen is you do not put yourself out there. People will not know about your business if you are not getting in front of new audiences. This is a huge mistake I see people make is they're just like, oh, well, I got to post more on social media. I got to be putting more out on social media. No, no. Odds are you don't. That doesn't mean that don't use social media. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying though that oftentimes isn't going to get you in front of new audiences. Okay. So the thing about podcast guesting is that is going to have that opportunity to get you out in front of more and more people. We all stutter over the things we're going to say. We all say the wrong things sometimes, but guess what? There are people that I know work with me and have come to work with me because they felt that I was real. Okay. And so please know that the realness, et cetera, is what the world wants. We are craving authenticity in our life. And so when someone comes on a show, they know what they're talking about. Someone really relates to them. That is when they become clients, customers, et cetera.
And those creepy AI generated videos now that you see, doesn't it make the authentic, stuttering over a word just all the more endearing?
Exactly. That's who we are. Yeah.
I just like, oh my God, it's so much crap now. I can't even take it. And it's like so great to just see real people and hear real
people. I asked Carly and Joe before we hopped on here. I was like, so what if I accidentally swear? Right. It's like, because those are real moments that happen, right? Like we are in our everyday life. We're going to say things, we're going to do things, right, et cetera. And of course, I'm gonna try not to do that, and they would have to edit it out if need be. But just knowing that that's a real person where that real thing could happen, makes the conversation even better, right? We're just passionate about what we do. So sometimes we get really excited about it, but that again, people really feel that, they really hear that, et cetera.
So what if people are listening to this and they're like, yeah, I don't love posting on social. Maybe this is the best way to get in front of new audiences. I'm going to give this a shot. And they're like, I'm going to reach out to call her daddy or whatever the show it right now. And I'm going to get on their podcast. What do you say to people that are really shooting for the moon on the shows that they should be on, but they're starting with a pretty small audience?
Yes, I would say that is a great goal to have, but it is not realistically the place where you should be spending your time right now. That doesn't mean that a year from now, 2 years from now, and beyond, that isn't going to absolutely be something that you should be pitching yourself to. But what I think makes a lot of sense is to look to your own network first. Look to the people that either perhaps you're in a mastermind or a membership with, right, et cetera, and see if there are some opportunities there. I will say this until I am blue in the face. I would always rather be in front of an audience of 100 of my ideal clients than 10,000 people that don't give a rip about what it is that I have to say. Okay. So I want you to remember that my clients make so much more money on the smaller, more niched podcasts they are on and we've got our clients on some big podcasts as opposed to the bigger podcasts. Okay. That doesn't mean that there's not value in those. That doesn't mean that at all. It just means know where strategically you should be spending your time. And that is where your ideal clients are hanging out, no matter the size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's such a good point because it's like if they're not going to convert, who cares about the number?
Who cares? Who really cares in the end?
Yeah.
And is that more ego driven? That's always the question that I ask when someone comes to me and because I will have people hop on discovery calls with me just like that. Like they've never been on a podcast and they're like, I don't know, maybe I could just get on like Joe Rogan or Oprah or something. And I'm like, yeah,
why not?
Yeah, I mean, like maybe down the road, I get, you know what I mean? But the only thing that comes to me is those are the only names they know, right? So they just kind of throw out what they know, and I understand that. Or B, it's ego driven, right? They're kind of like, I think I should be on this caliber show, or it's not worth me being on a show at all, right? And I tell you what, I'd rather have a fat bank account than be on a big show any day of the week. Okay. So definitely look at it that way from a strategy perspective.
Yeah, and you just have to put in your reps and what you do. I mean, even from the podcast
100%.
point, when we first started our show, we were kind of like, yeah, if you want to be on the show, come on the show. Oh, you're my next
Absolutely.
come be on the show.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
very selective. So feel very VIP, Christina.
Yeah. Well, I do. I do.
Like you have to put in those reps at first on the guesting side as well.
Mhm.
Jay, like you're gonna say
I got to jump in because we also, though, early in our podcast had some really wonderful people that we happen to know personally that did us the favor. And I just don't want any of those people going back and saying, hey, I was on episode 7 or whatever, and I just got dissed by Joe and Carly. So we had a lot. We had a lot of awesome guests early. It was just we weren't able to be. We couldn't just go that we want to get that person. It was like, okay, I know him or her from before, and they'll do me the favor.
Well, you were doing the opposite of what we talked about earlier. You were using your network, right? And so that's never is that a bad thing, right? Never does that mean that those people weren't. Of course, your audience learned from those, but your point was, hey, our audience might have still been small, but these were our friends, these were our networks, whatever, that did us a favor and came on. That absolutely doesn't mean that there isn't value, in what they said and things like that.
It was just then they were doing us a favor. Now we feel a little more like we're doing the guest a favor by giving them a platform. But but
that's after 200 episodes and like in the work
200 plus.
Well, so let's say people they're like, okay, I get it. I'm not going to be on like the top 0.01% of shows right now.
Right now, that's important that you
next
said
week.
that. Right now, that doesn't mean ever. It just means right now. Yeah.
And just starting, how do they find the shows that they should be on, and how do they reach out to these shows? Is there a secret sauce to getting a guest from them, or what is your?
Let me answer that in 2 parts. So the first one is, how do we find the shows that we think make the most sense for us to get on, right? Now, we already talked about kind of going to our network, right? So seeing who are the people that we know that might have a show. That's a great way. Also, potentially, is there someone that maybe is in a mastermind with me that's been on a show that I want to be on, right? Could they do an intro for me? Those are some really great ways to use your network like that. The other thing that I really recommend, and I would challenge everyone listening to this episode in the next 48 hours to do this, is put a note up on your social media or put it in an e-newsletter. Say, hey, what shows do you guys listen to? Let your audience tell you what some of these shows are that they listen to. Now, there's going to be some that don't make any sense for you and what you do. I love true crime podcasts.
You don't want to be on those if you can help it.
Yeah, I always say, I'm like, if I'm suddenly pitching true crime podcasts, something has gone really, really wrong, in my business. You know what I mean? So that's not necessarily going to be one that works for my business, but the next person is going to send me one that I've never heard of that looks like a very cool fit for me or for a client or something like that, right? So I think that's a really great place to start. The other thing that I really recommend is doing what I call the podcast piggyback method. And so what that means is I want you to think of someone that has a similar audience to you, similar ideal client, similar customer base, etc. They don't need to be a competitor. They might be, but it could just be someone that does something, right, where you guys have the same ideal client. And then I want you to drop their name into Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever. And you're going to see what shows they have been on. Okay. So I want you to look at the shows that they've been on. Those might be some good shows for you to pitch some different topic ideas to, but you know that that's that ideal audience. The other thing that you're going to do is look at the shows they've been on, scroll down to the bottom and see the shows you might also like. Right? Or people that listen to this show listen to, and then it's going to have different shows down at the bottom. That is another really great spot to start doing some research and find some shows that could be a really, really good fit for you. But that's what I say at the beginning is take people who have that ideal audience, see what they've been on, right? See if there's an opportunity for you to also go on that show with a different topic, and then see what shows are like those shows, right? And get yourself a nice list from there too.
That's smart. Okay, so they have the list. Time to pitch.
Yes. Well, we can get into the pitch template and what I believe, should kind of be on there. Or are you more wanting to know about how they find who they should reach out to?
I think people have their ways of finding people. We can get to that, but I just Like, do you say, I just listened to the last episode,
No.
love the vibe? I mean, I was going with that because every time I see that in my inbox, I'm like, you're a robot.
Exactly. Exactly. Carly just said it, you guys. When you write that message, that host immediately knows you have not listened to their show. You have not really taken the time to do some research on their show. So, what I really recommend and what I teach and what we do for our clients is we create what we call a pitch template, okay, for every client. And this is something you can do for yourself. And that is where 80% of your pitch is done. Okay. So, meaning your credibility markers, all these really great topics, and we can get into the importance of topics, are all written out. And then you're going to fill in that other 20% based on that specific show. Okay. You're going to choose which topics make the most sense for that show. And then you are going to genuinely look at the show that you are pitching. Okay. I will go back sometimes quite a ways to find a show that I am genuinely interested in listening to, meaning like it might be an episode that's a month old, 2 months old. I've even gone 6 months back to find an episode that I am genuinely interested in. Then I listen to the first 5 minutes, I listen to the last 5 minutes, and I listen to 5 minutes in the middle. Okay. This gives me a really good idea as to the vibe of the show, the type of stuff they talk about, the language that they use to describe their audience, right? That can all go in the pitch there. So this is really important thing to do is mirror back how they talk about their audience. Okay. So meaning, for Joe and Carly, they describe their audience as solopreneurs, right? So make sure that you are using that verbiage all throughout your pitch. Okay. So that they are really clear. Hey, I know who your audience is and I know how I can provide value to them. That is the key. You are not on there to talk about yourself. You are on there to talk about how you can provide value to the listeners.
Yeah. And I feel like that's just such practical, actionable advice. But I have to know, like, this is the world you live in. What mistakes do you see people make the most when they're pitching shows, on shows? Just what makes your, like, you just cringe?
Yeah, for me, it's hearing from hosts how 95+% of the pitches they get are trash. How they are, just like you said, clearly someone has not looked into their show, right? They're sending a pitch. We call it in the biz, we call it the spray and pray method, where they kind of write one thing, they send it to a lot of people, and then they kind of cross their fingers that some folks will write back. Okay. So when I see that, when I hear that, etc., that really makes my blood boil. Because I obviously always want hosts to be receiving great pitches, right? I want them to know that people have been researching them, know that it's the right fit, know that they can bring the value to their particular audience. The other thing that I would really mention, I see a lot, and this is a little thing, but it is one thing it'll really grind my gears. You know what I'm saying? Is that people will send pitches and they won't include the first name or names of the hosts. Okay. This is a very easy thing for you to find. Okay. So they'll write like, hey, hosts, or they'll be like, hey, show name, whatever. They do not take the extra 5 seconds to grab the name of the host, which literally is in Apple Podcasts right under the name of the show a lot of the time. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have to listen. Oh my God, you have to listen and hear the name, you know what I mean? And then put it in. But that to me, I have so many friends that are podcast hosts, and they're like, the second they haven't used my name, it's out. Like I'm done. You know what I mean? So that's a very little thing that taking that extra literal 10 seconds will make a big difference in how your pitch is received.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Just because this is great, but I want to flip this on its head. So I'm interested in getting on podcasts. What should I look for or in the hosts? What's a good host? What should I be listening for as I listen to say I want to get on that podcast versus probably worth skipping? Any opinion there?
I don't necessarily have an opinion on the hosts themselves. I'm very, very interested in the audience, right? So like that's what I'm more so focused on. I always say this about hosts, and I don't mean this in like a crass way at all, but it's a good way to describe it. You will meet hosts that will be like a one night stand, and you will meet hosts that will be a long-term relationship. Okay. Both have value, but you're going to have these like longer term relationships with certain hosts. And then some are going to be, thank you very much for having me on the show and getting me in front of your audience. I appreciate it so much. You're still going to share the episode, etc. But you might not have that same click or that same like, hey, we really hit it off like in this way as with other people. So that's why I say I don't worry as much about the host. I'm definitely looking to like, how engaged is their audience? Is this the right audience for me?
And to show appreciation for being on the show. It's funny, we've
Oh,
done
absolutely.
200
Yeah.
episodes now. And granted, some of them are Joe and I, some of them are repeats.
Yeah.
Over 200, have had a lot of guests. I've received maybe three follow-up thank you emails. And those 3, now anytime I see them on LinkedIn, I'm like, I'm going to comment on this post.
I love this. Yes.
To be your biggest cheerleader. Just a simple follow-up email. And it's funny. Like, I think if you're the guest, like showing appreciation, be like, yeah, I'm going to post it to my channel. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like hosts will remember that and they may invite you back on in the future. They may do a favor for you. One of our guests was lovely and she's helping us, like, she's great with this book that we're writing and has been super helpful with that. And she was a podcast guest.
Love that. I love that. Yes, I have had many hosts become clients. I 100% agree. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, just throwing that. Maybe I'm a little bitter, but I'm like, send me a
No, you're not. What if I was just like, yeah, you are? No, I think that, I think that how you feel about that is very natural because you put a lot of work into this podcast. And that is something that podcast guests need to understand is like, I think a lot of times podcast guests make the mistake if they go on shows and they're like, oh, they're lucky to have me. Like they're lucky to have me spending my time to be on this show, right? No, that ain't it. That ain't it, right? Like that podcast host, they're doing most of the work, right? You're showing up as a guest. Now you're preparing, right? Like I told you, I was listening to an episode before I hopped on here, etc. Like you still need to be doing things as a guest. Don't get me wrong. It's not that you're just going to show up, but to put on a podcast is a lot of work, y'all. If you don't know, please believe me, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. Carly and Joe are showing up at the same time, which is like amazing. Whenever there's co-hosts, I'm like, hats off to you guys, like for coordinating your schedules and like that way. But my point of this is the least you can do is share that episode. Okay. And tag the show in that, right? Share it across your various channels. Like you said, LinkedIn, put it on Instagram, put it in a newsletter. Talk about things that make my blood boil. That is one of them is when people don't share when an episode has aired.
Yep. Okay. We have the same things that make our blood boil.
Yes. That's why I'm like, well, if you're bitter, then I'm bitter too. Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up because solopreneurs or people in general just hear the importance of content. And for your business, you need to release content and social and content. And podcasts are a great way to repurpose.
Absolutely.
Which is so beneficial for solopreneurs because they're so strapped for time. So what are some ways that they can do that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple ways that I would definitely recommend repurposing the easiest way as possible. One of them is, and I'm just going to be honest, you can find people on Fiverr that will literally, you can go, here's my podcast episode. Can you make a blog post? Can you make 4 social media reels? Can you make whatever? And have them do that work for you at a lower cost, right? So something that maybe isn't going to cost a lot. On the flip side of that, I really love to use a tool that I recommend called Headliner. It's headliner.app is the name, and it is free for up to a certain amount per month. But basically, the reason that I like this tool is there's a lot of really great like AI-based tools if you have the digital file, meaning you have like the voice file, right? But as a guest, you don't have that. Right. I mean, you can always ask a host, but then you have to like do another step, et cetera. So the nice thing about Headliner is once it's published, like on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, they can pull that audio. And so it makes it really, really easy for you to go, hey, here's the episode I was on. And they actually have like a whole wizard that'll do so you can like make a clip directly in the app, download it, share it on your social media channels, etc. But that is a really, really nice tool, an easy tool to get some of those like social media clips and things like that out there.
Don't mind me just muting myself over here so I could type in headliner. Like,
Absolutely. And I mean, I will say, like, we were talking about AI a little bit earlier, you know, I'm not going to lie, you can easily make a blog post from a podcast episode that you're on using AI, right? You can absolutely get a transcript of that show, ask, Chatty G, as I like to call her, to create, a 300, 500 word blog post, including backlinks. Of course, you need to go through it. You need to edit it. You need to make sure it has the stuff in there that you want, but that can really help save a lot of time for you. Or if you have like a VA or a contractor or something like that, that might be able to help with some of that too.
so let me ask, because at the end of the day, like, yeah, you want to repurpose content, get on the right shows, but this is all to support a business. Like people, unless they're just looking for 15 minutes of fame through podcasting, people are doing this at the end of the day to support their bottom line.
Absolutely.
How can they measure the success of their podcast guesting efforts? Is there a way to tie it back to ROI or anything?
Yeah, I mean, how most of our clients tie back to ROI is a lot of our clients are service providers. Okay. So, someone needs to apply or hop on a call or something like that to be able to work with them, right? Like a lot of them are higher ticket offers. And so what they really do to track a lot of this is they just ask, when someone signs up for a discovery call or they apply, they're like, hey, how did you find out about us? Right. And so one of the options that they'll have is, I heard you on a podcast. Right. They don't even necessarily, like, a lot of times people don't remember what podcast it was, because sometimes I'll get on a call and I'll be like, hey, I saw you heard me on a podcast. Like, what pod? They're like, oh, I don't know. They might know, but sometimes like they don't. And I'm like, it's okay. I just know that that is then working, right? And so for me, that's definitely like an easy way that we track, is just asking people where they heard about us, and just adding that question in. Some people definitely get more specific, right? They want to have like a pretty link for each show that they're on, which you could absolutely do. Or what we really recommend for clients is, like, once a quarter, be looking at your numbers. So meaning, look at your social media channels and see how they've grown. Look at your e-newsletter list, see how they've grown. I don't necessarily recommend, particularly for like a solopreneur that doesn't have a lot of time, you don't need to look at that after each episode. That's why, like, once a quarter or something like that could be a really great measurement for you to know that, hey, this is working, this is getting me out there. But also acknowledging that, like, someone might hear you a couple times before they make a move, right? People hear me I'm on 2 podcasts a month on average. So that means over a year, I'm on 24 podcasts, what we do for our annual clients. Okay. Sometimes people hear me on more than one show. You know what I mean? They'll hear me on a show and then they might hear me a couple of months later. This has happened many times. That's when they book a call, right? So also know that sometimes it might take someone hearing you a couple times before they make that move, meaning it's never a waste of time for you to go on a show. It just means that, like, sometimes you might not be able to track something directly to like that first instant they heard you.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. But that also goes back to choosing the right shows so that they hear you. The repetition is there, and
Yeah.
because
I'm like, you can't escape me. I'm here. I'm in your AirPods.
You're doing manual retargeting.
Yeah, basically. It's very, very intensive manual targeting. Yes, exactly.
Yes. Not the most efficient way to do retargeting. Okay, so when I was coming up with a list of questions to ask you, I was kind of proud of myself for this one. So if you think it's kind of fluffy, like, man, I would. But what's one belief you wish that every solopreneur had about their own story, and why are their own stories worth sharing?
I actually loved this question when I saw it on the list that you gave me, and I really think that what it comes down to is, like, you are valuable. You are worthy of being on these podcasts. I talk to people a lot that are like, well, I don't have a book yet, or I don't know, I haven't been on a TEDx stage yet, or whatever. And I'm like, none of that really matters. We talked about it at the very beginning. People want to relate to something about you. They want that authenticity. They want to know that you are the person that's going to be able to help them, and your story, whatever that is is going to attract the right people. For the record, it's also going to repel some people. But I'm here to tell you that's okay. Okay. Because those people aren't going to be your ideal clients or customers, anyways, right? We are trying to sift through to the people that we really, really want to get in front of. But I just want you to know that your story, whatever that is absolutely worth it. Our clients, when they get on and they tell the stories of how they got to where they are in their life, the things that drove them to do what they do, that is really, really where the connection happens. That's where they get the DMs, that's where they get the emails, where they get the follow-ups, that someone is like, "Hey, I heard you on that show and I really, really loved what you had to say." And it doesn't have to be anything profound. It was just something maybe even one-off that they said, but someone really felt that in their core.
I mean, it's funny. One of our favorite episodes that we've done to date, it was interviewing a guy that runs a dog poop pickup company.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Hey, that's important. I know marriages saved by a company like that. So, yes.
And it's like one of those things where first you're like, what an interesting person to have on
Yeah.
The story behind it and his storytelling were incredible. And so
I love that.
it can
Yeah.
relate to anything. So I think that's a good point. Thanks for entertaining that question.
Oh, happy to entertain that question. That was a great one.
Thanks. Well, Christina, you help so many people find success through podcast guesting. So we have to ask you, what is your favorite quote about success?
So for me, this is the one that's actually in front of me when I work. And it says, "Have the courage to suck at something new." And truly, truly for me, that is it. And I bet there are a lot of people that are listening to this today that are perfectionists, right? They're like, if I'm not going to be able to say it exactly how I want to say it, I don't think I could ever do, this podcast guesting. I don't think I could ever do whatever. But you said it at the beginning. It is muscle memory. It is repetition. It is getting out there, saying it, knowing you're going to stumble over your first ones. And by the way, for me, this applies to like anything as a business owner, right? So it's not just podcast guesting. It's any part of being a business owner. But it takes a lot of courage to know that you are not going to maybe come out the gate and be the best that there ever was, right? We have to get better at those things, but we have to start somewhere.
So great. So great. Well, Christina, if they want to learn more about you, if our audience wants to learn more about you, where can they find you?
You can find me over at podcastpublicityquiz.com. I have a really fun interactive quiz that'll help direct you, whether maybe you're someone who wants to potentially start this and kind of DIY it, or maybe you're someone that's looking more for that done for you pitching service that we have.
Awesome. We will include that in the show notes for sure. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you both. I absolutely love what you're doing. Solopreneurs, you guys, you work the hardest, you're the best, and I can't wait to hear about more of those stories that get out there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, please share this episode with a friend, leave that 5-star review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And we'll see you next time on The Aspiring Solopreneur.